Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
He can cut out whatever we.
Yeah, he can cut out whatever he wants.
Well, we're live now, so.
Yeah, and yeah, we can just alert people as they come that we're live. So, but yeah, I just found those pictures of giants building the pyramids. So I'm just gonna put them into the folder I'm going to be showing. Just a second. A folder I have called Egypt. Okie dokie.
Yeah, just so you're ready to present screen.
Yeah, I'm going to start this screen share.
There we go. I like that effect. That infinite.
Yeah, me too. It's like the paradox. Oh, well, okay, this is giants. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about is Egypt and its real place in history. Egypt has been, categorized as the epicenter of antiquity, and this is where all the knowledge originated from, according to mainstream Western philosophy. Mainstream Western philosophy has always been the outlier in terms of cosmology and history, because everyone else seems to know or point towards either the east or the northern eastern parts of our known world, being also called the Orient. And I wonder whether "or" in Orient can be compared with or originate, original, and I think it's very close. It has a relationship. So the Orient is where we will discover our origins.
Oro is also the word for gold, right?
Yeah, it is gold. That is where that was where the last golden age ended. That was in the Orient. And it is a particularly Saturnian area. Saturn rules mysticism and astrology, and these people of the Orient were known to be shamans before everything else. We will see that they were highly advanced technologically too, but before everything else, they were known as a priestly people. They had a shamanic religion, and it was culturally a very big part of part of the empire as well. And it changed somehow at some point, perhaps by Phoenician influence. But the original priestly class had this knowledge. It's the same knowledge we can read here. It's very interesting that we see that the original founder of the Phoenician sect was called Zeno, and he was a barbarian. And this was shown by Martin Liedtke the other day. But I will go through some of this as well to make some points. So yeah, a barbarian or a semi-barbarian. So it's interesting that the original Phoenician was a Tartarian, and we read the Phoenicians had a great share in the Oriental knowledge. So the Oriental knowledge is where everything originated, and the Phoenicians were imitators of this knowledge, and they had a large share of it, probably because the founder was a semi-barbarian, probably more so than a barbarian, because the semi of it would correspond better with why he wouldn't have, like, or maybe the knowledge gradually waned out or got lost or diminished somehow by catastrophes. But at least the Phoenicians looked up to their mystical Tartar bigger brothers, I would call them. Just as Saturn was the father to Jupiter, these people are Jupiterians. They are materialists, just as Jupiter is, and they have a great appetite in many areas, not only sexually, but they have a big stomach as well. They like eating and drinking, and that's Jupiter and Bacchus. Bacchus is Jupiter's son. And their counterpart is the Tartar people, the Saturnian people. We even see that the Tartarian Sea north of Siberia is sometimes called the Saturnian Seas. And the griffin I see it now distinctly as a Saturnian symbol, but that is a discussion for another time. So the Tartars are Saturn's people, and the good part of Saturn, the golden age Saturn, the harvester, the guy who is focused on agriculture and things prospering,
right? If you tie that into all that display of grandeur you see in all those images of the people, everything looks good. And I mean, you take your images and you want it to look good, but there's no how do I put this?
Well,
there's no shabby shabby quality going on.
No, well, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can't do the non-quack thing, but that would word it out better. Like every building you see is made with the highest standards.
Yeah, but the Phoenicians are like, they have their buildings are very ornamented in flowers and symbols and fine art, whereas I think the Tartar architecture later on in history was less ornate and more function based. It would contain symbols, but those symbols would also be much more functional. They would have I think they would be legible. It would be a language, whereas the Phoenicians, they like to hide their secrets in stone. I think the Tartars, on the contrary, like to incorporate their knowledge into their stone, and not have it be necessarily intentionally encoded in a way so as it would be hard to gather information about it.
Sort of a wild theory ever since you mentioned that. The functionality of these cathedrals you see in big cities.
Yeah.
They don't need the fancy statues, and in the case of the Notre Dame, the gargoyles and all that type of stuff was all added later.
Yeah.
So,
and probably if they were not only added but also replaced, there should and might have been original statues of beauty instead.
Who was the one to set up the Protestant? Was that Martin Luther?
Yeah.
What of Tartan Luther? And what he knew about the origin of these buildings and wanted to get them restored in their former glory. In the Netherlands, we had a thing called the Statue Storm. And that was when the Protestants actually took off all the statues from all the churches and actually demolished a bunch.
Yeah.
to bring them back to a more simple state.
Yeah, that's true. That might be a story that's a huge story in and of itself. I would like to go into at a later time. And the Freemasons, they look very much up to Martin Luther as a big inspirator of the Enlightenment era in Northern Europe. So he is one of their heroes.
I'm not studied in the subject. It's just something you said that, and it just came to mind, like the additions of the statues by the Phoenicians.
Yeah, they like their ornamentation, and I feel, and I have some pieces of evidence to support it, that the Tartars were less ornament fixated in their architecture, but they did incorporate some, but not to the same extent. But yeah, what are you saying?
Function over form type of deal. It needs to work, and then it may look nice.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, well, continue on, because that's all I wanted to get out there at the moment.
Well, okay, thank you. And in the last part we see here too, we have also, you see, traced these opinions higher to the first barbaric philosophers. That would be the Tartar philosophers of the Orient. And we saw the Orient original, the gold, Saturn, the golden Saturn. There is even a Danish word called Saturnisk, that means blissful, full of happiness, and that is referring to Saturn's golden age. But yeah, and we see that these barbaric philosophers who had accounts of the great floods were the first race of philosophers after the flood. So they are the keepers of knowledge, and they came from the Orient, not Africa. At least according to this book called, this is annoying, The Sacred Theory of the Earth. And the Stoics, especially of all other sects amongst the Greeks, have preserved the doctrine of the conflagration, the great fire, and it made it a considerable part of their philosophy and almost a character of their order. This is a thing so well known that I need not use any citations to prove it, but they cannot pretend to have been the first authors of it neither. For besides that, amongst the Greeks themselves, Heraclitus and Empedocles, more ancient than Zeno, the master of the Stoics, taught this doctrine. 'Tis plainly a branch of the barbaric philosophy, and taken from thence by the Greeks. So the Greeks look up to the Tartarians. For it is well known that the most ancient and mystic learning amongst the Greeks was not originally their own, but borrowed of the more Eastern nations. Again, confirmation of the same thing. And we can read that in Plato's Timaeus, wherein there's an account of, I can't remember, one of the old philosophers, was it Solon? His grandfather meets with like this Egyptian guy, and he says to him that there are no old men among the Greeks, meaning that they have no wisdom. And he was perhaps one of the survivors, that guy, following Solon's, I think one of Solon's ancestors that. And that was a story that got told to Solon on a later date. I might be wrong on that. I would like to get corrected by someone, but yeah. Moving on. And not only the Eastern barbarians, but the Northern and Western also. So you see, there are many barbarians. Had this doctrine of the conflagration amongst them. The Scythians, in their dispute with the Egyptians about antiquity, argue. Okay, so why I highlighted this is to say Scythians are disputing with Egyptians about antiquity. I think this is an implication. This is implying that they are in contact with each other first and foremost. They are not enemies. They are very close to each other, but they have minor differences. they have ideological and historical disputes, just as the Muslims and the Christians of today have.
Well, that would make sense, right? I mean, you don't have to agree on everything, and it's like,
yeah, but it's
yeah.
kind of pedantic, right? Or I guess it's kind of important when you imagine the scale of what they're arguing about. But what they're arguing about is upon both suppositions of fire or water destroying the last world or beginning this. So this was a huge argument between these, the north and the south of, I could say, the Tartary Empire.
Yep.
I guess it divided them quite a bit, so much as to one began a fire cult and one created a water cult. And if you remember me talking about that, this would make sense. So, and in this West, the Celts and the Druids are among these ancient barbarians. So we get all the ancient people except the Phoenicians and the Greeks. They are all seemingly part of what the Phoenicians called the barbarians, but that could just be the whole empire of the old world, the Tartarian Empire. And that's crazy if it's so. And again, let us now proceed to the Eastern nations. As the Romans received their small skill they had in the sciences, from the Greeks, so the Greeks received their chief mystic learning from the barbarians. So mystic learning, there's an emphasis on here, but there's also a reference from Bailey, wherein Bailey, a contemporary of Benjamin Franklin, says that Tartary was a highly scientific nation, so both mystical and scientific. That is from the Egyptians, Persians, and Phoenicians, and other Eastern nations. So they throw all of these in together, and other Eastern nations. They are the keepers of knowledge.
Yep.
For 'tis not only the Western or the Northern people that they call barbarians, but indeed all nations besides themselves. For that is commonly the vanity of great empires. And that just struck me as a very odd thing to say. How many great empires do you know of, dear author? Commonly, like how many cases of great empires do you have to just take off of your like pocket and, oh yeah, remember Empire 1 and Empire 2 and 3 and 4 and how vain they all were? Okay, so I'm sharing again. Oh, okay.
Yes, you are.
Okay, where was I? Yeah, I was talking about this weird thing he says. Not first of all that the barbarians, but indeed all nations beside themselves were called barbarians. And that is commonly the vanity of great empires to uncivilize in a manner all the rest of the world. There might be a logical truth to that. You could see that if you're very cynical about human nature, I guess. You have a negative anthropology, and then you would assume that empire would seek to undermine the rest of, or all its enemies, so to speak.
It's like the demonization of the self.
Yes, but what I find weird is that he's saying that it is commonly the vanity of great empires, as if there is a long line of great empires to pick from to see this vanity thing. That I find weird. Because what empires would you choose, dear 1600 alchemist? You have, well, if you go by mainstream history, you have, I guess, the many things could be have called empires, great empires, but in another passage he says the Romans had little skill. So, and we know the Romans did exactly this. It uncivilized everyone else. So yeah, I find it a weird comment but he's basically commenting upon this, that they were sticked to this manner of propaganda, all the barbarians. And we know that these guys, the Phoenicians and the Greeks, wrote our history, so we can now understand that this author is calling to our attention that we should not buy the propaganda, or we should at least be aware of it. Also because that these guys calling these guys, you know, barbaric, and we understand that to be something that is bad. It might not always have been that. That might have been change of meaning, as we see words change meaning over the course of time. Sometimes drastically, 180 degrees turn in meaning. So yeah, I would pin that down to propaganda. But I will go further on. We must therefore add the testimonies of the prophets and the apostles to these of the Greeks and the barbarians. So this is an important thing, because we can understand that the originators of the New Testament, perhaps also the Old Testament, were the mystic barbarians, and the Greeks picked it up from them, translated into Greek, and that is the New Testament. And we know why now Plato and Western philosophy corresponds in such a great extent to the biblical moral philosophy. They are one and the same. This is, now we can understand why. We can also understand why figures such as Genghis Khan's father, he had a name which, if you translate it into English, would mean Father of Jesus Christ. So these people are intimately connected to the biblical historical narrative, and therefore also Babylon. We see and hear from the Freemasons, who look always to the east. Every Freemasonic lodge has its gate towards the east, because that is where the origins are. That is where the sun rises, the gold, the orient, the ore, the gold. And that is where the builders came from. It has always been implied. It's right there in plain sight. It's the Orient. And yeah, the Freemasons, if you go into a lodge, you would probably see Egyptian style ornamentation everywhere. That is basically their, it's like Nikola Tesla, when they created Nikola Tesla, and now you have like this vortex in the free energy movement, where if you talk about free energy, you have to think about Nikola Tesla, and that just arrests the exploration of free energy, I think, to a certain extent. This is the same thing with Egypt. It arrests the exploration and the thought of having the same people around you other places, like not only Egypt. It's like this great distraction, but they have to admit some things by it. And we'll see more of that as I go further on. These are from Lee. Thank you, Lee. So yeah, these are excerpts from the Fomenko History, Fiction, or Science. And we read, the basic Egyptian chronology has also reached us through the filter of Christian chronologists. The list of kings compiled by Manethon only survived as quotations made by Christian authors. Some readers might be unaware that the Oriental Church avoided using the birth of Christ as a chronological point of reference, since in Constantinople the debates about the date of his birth had continued well into something century.
14th.
Thank you. So again, we see that the early church fathers are on trial by Fomenko for creating the Egyptian chronology. And if we go further on, Newton also has some comments about it. Newton's main conclusion may be encapsulated as follows. He moves a part of the history of ancient Greece about 300 years forward in time, closer to us. The history of ancient Egypt, covering a span of several hundred years, according to Scaliger, that is 3000 BC and on, is moved forward in time by Newton and compressed into a time period as short as 330 years, namely 946 BC to 617 BC. Newton also moves some fundamental dates of the ancient Egyptian history about 1800 years forward in time to circa this date. This is around the time where the mainstream timeline reports the Genghis Khan was popping up and starting the Tartar Empire. Was probably a bit before this, but around this time. And I also noted that 330 years is a pretty good period of time between resets. It would. I just got the feeling that this was a period, and it ended by a catastrophe, because we see Egypt is in tatters. So yeah, a lot of academics have questioned the timeline. So we know they are lying about Egypt, and what they're covering up is that Egypt is not only Babylon, as we will see on ancient maps, but it is part of this, what we think is a Tartarian union. And that is very important, because it not only covers up that we got our civilization from the Orient and possibly also the North, and it covers up that this empire existed in Egypt as well, to a degree. It's not clear yet how Barbaria and Tartaria, how they were connected. I think they were intimately connected, such as how perhaps Denmark and Sweden and Norway are very closely connected. But it may have been that barbarians disagreed with the Tartarians on certain things that made them make their own country kingdom apart from Tartaria at one point. But yeah, that is another discussion. I will also read this.
Victor, wasn't there also some sort of distinction by one of the popes that referenced their Scythian and barbarian, like distinctively identifying them as two different characteristics?
There was a map wherein the opposite occurred, wherein it said that Tartary was synonymous with Scythia. But I have also read that the Scythian were the distinct Gothic population of Tartary. And the Goths would be the Celts, and the northern western part of the barbarians. That would be the Danes and the Norwegians and the Swedes. And
but what about the natives of North America and those regions often referenced as being part of this coalition in that process, so being of many descents in general?
They share a lot of things, with the Persians carrying feathers on their heads. And I have noted that authors in the 18th centuries claims that there are no similarities between the Native American Indians and, for instance, ancient Orientals. And that is a lie. It's a plain lie. I could spot numerous similarities just by looking at old books, just like going through the pictures. They must have been connected, and the author even mentions that Asia and America was connected by a land bridge at one point. So,
oh, indeed,
yeah.
And so, just being of that point, that kind of that whole region being of like multi-descent, multi kind of integrations in that area, and multiple tribes that were among that.
Yeah.
Whether being Viking or what would be commonly known as native of North America.
Yeah, I bet one of the reasons why you hear the stories about, well, was it actually the Vikings who discovered America? That is a subtle admission from their part, saying that the Vikings had contact with the Native American population.
That they were always here in
Yeah.
the first place. with them.
And we also hear that the Phoenicians mined copper in America a long time before the discoveries of Christopher Columbus. And we have so many similarities between Vikings and Phoenicians that it's not even funny anymore. So they were connected. If they were trading, that could be possible, but I think it was one empire.
And yeah, that's what a lot of the elements that I've come to believe over the time of looking into this, that there were multiple tribes that intertwined, and they both came together as a coalition and worked with Tartary in that process, and it was a harmony and
you have heard about the Egyptians. Actually, you turn it around. You have mainstream history say, well, African slaves came to America, but actually it was Americans that African Americans living there, Moorish Americans, that were transported to Africa, it would seem, in the old world. That was a reverse slave trade, or a reverse migration at one point.
It seemed, well, yeah, and relating to that, it seemed like what they did is they tried to move everybody into categories so that they could compartmentalize them with a narrative in order to do that. So everybody was intertwined across all nations together in varying elements in a harmony of elements as they intertwine with each other in existence, is what it seemed like.
Yes. It's yeah, and even the Phoenicians were part of the original 13 tribes, and I think the 13 tribes are the empire. They're like 13 nations, great nations, and they just somehow felt inferior. They were like the gammas of of their age, I think, and that's what caused it. It was the spirit of envy and the spirit of lust.
Compartmentalization would be control, and so just each layer of compartmentalization dividing us instead of that harmony between each other and the knowledge that we share as we intertwine that, almost like a frequency as we understand each other's process and journey, and how it can unify together instead of this compartmentalization that we've been hijacked into.
Yeah, and I think that it had to happen that way for their takeover. They had to divide and conquer. It was the only way possible for them because they were outnumbered and the odds were against them. I find it very funny if you watch the new series, HBO series Vikings, although it's a very benign version of perhaps how antiquity would have looked like, because they cannot, create all of it, recreate it. Sorry. In one episode, on few of the episodes, the Vikings travel down to the Mediterranean and meet the Phoenicians and the Moorish Phoenicians down there, and the main theme down there is that they are deceitful. They deceive, and they're very good at it. And like their advisor on the trip tells them that nothing is as it seems. So, and they are they were the rich. They possessed a lot of riches in that time. We see in the series. So I just find it funny that they're showing you a lot of stuff if you know some of things about history, but you got to know a lot to see the whole thing, and also to see when they are lying, of course.
The subtle hijacks, but also the subtle bits of knowledge too, or seeds.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes we also find out that they simply just I think, randomly put stuff out that just happened to lean very close to being truthful. So, but yeah, Babylon, Cairo. This was shown by Static in the Attic on YouTube. He has a great video about it. A lot of maps showing you this, that Cairo was called Babylon. If we think about the Tower of Babylon, if it could have been around here somewhere, and or maybe if the Tower of Babylon just is a model, and there were a lot of towers of Babylon, so to speak, Babylon towers. I think it caters into the, or it fits into the narrative of the Tartarians having this great communication grid. And I think the Babylon towers were communication towers because in the Bible we have the tale of the one language. And the tower is intimately connected with one language, one people, one world empire. And that is exactly that. I think this was the major hub. We have like a pyramid park up here. And it just seems to me that perhaps these pyramids were powering maybe a few number of Babylon towers for this major communication hub, just as New York City is today, that we could call that New Babylon. And the New York City have great towers. And I think the city that got extremely mud flooded had great towers as well. And perhaps they were powered by the pyramids. And this was the major commerce, communication, internet hub of the old world. And powered by the Nile Delta. I think that is where I'm going with this. And it was a magical kingdom full of centaurs, people riding giant crocodiles, griffins and lions, and alchemists roaming around in the mountains, and dragons. So yeah, and here the pyramids are. Look at those giants. Love those old maps. So this was an interesting place.
Pretty amazing, yeah.
This is a view from Cairo after the mud flood. I think they rebuilt it to a certain extent. Maybe Cairo was totally decimated and they just built on like the roofs of the old city. Because it just, from the old pictures of Babylon, look at this. I think this was the area around the pyramids. And we see around the pyramids today, they have these, they built wide structures as the Tartarians, just as star forts. It's the same principle. They don't always, they build more wide structures than they build tall structures. And we see those plateaus and layers around the pyramid of Giza complex. But there's a reason for that. We'll see that later. This is more of Babylon. You can see Romano-Greco style pyramids inside the city. Pretty modern buildings. Yeah, just the usual stuff. And here it is mud flooded. And this is the Tower of Babylon in ruins, as I've shown before in one of the other streams. And this is a picture by Kircher. And it is undoubtedly said by him that this is the prospect of the Prospectus Ruderum Turis Babel. That means prospect of the ruins of the Tower of Babel. And it is observed by, I can't locate this place, so if someone could do that, I'll be major happy. So I don't know exactly where this is, but I have a suspicion this is in Northern Africa rather than Iraq. Oh shit. Oh, sorry. This is a depiction of the Tower of Babylon, if it would show. Oh, that's ridiculous.
Hello. Well, yeah.
Could you mute Mike? I think he muted it. So this is Babylon City on an ancient mural, and look at the height of the city. I just think it was completely decimated, mud flooded. And the new Cairo we see today is built somewhere up these by the roofs of some of these buildings, I would say. It would
Just
fit.
have a quick look-see at the current day situation in Cairo, because I do think you have a point here.
Yeah.
Look at all these cliffs.
Yep. They dug it down. They dug it down to get to the city. And Mike, if you compare with the Solomon Temple of the Israelites, it was that structure was, I think it was like 1 kilometer high, like maybe 500 to 1 kilometer high building, and the mud reached its roof. So some places of the world, the layer of mud was so extreme that it's very hard to find out what was down there.
we're talking 40 meters here.
Yep. So I think Cairo is a completely, it got rebuilt, and the major part of the city and the old Babylon is underneath Cairo.
Oh wow, the edge of the star fort, that's so interesting. When you go by back there where you were zoomed in, Mike, it does look like those ridges of a star fort being dug out.
Mm-hmm. And they even build a little star on top of it, probably because there's an older star down here. We've seen that before.
Oh yes, we have.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll resume because there's a lot of stuff, Mike.
Yeah, no worries.
So yeah, this is the pyramid builders, Moorish barbarians, and this guy looks as if he has blonde hair, a little bit, but they are Moors and they are pretty large compared with a giraffe. And this is more of Egypt. This is a cone head, and perhaps what we could call Homo cervantes. Here again. Yeah, humans built the pyramids. Here they pour the mix, wait for it to harden, the engineer levels it, and then they carry them. And the obelisk, case closed. I would say this is pretty accurate. What do you think? That was pretty rhetorical question. Okay. More. This is the Pyramid Park. And we only have 3 remaining pyramids today and a few small ones. And there used to be, I have counted up to 12 large pyramids on some of these old ones. And I think it went from 12 to 9 to 6 and to 4 and then to 3. Because I have states wherein they are 9, they are 6. And then I have a story about the Danish explorer talking about a 4th.
Going to 2 then? Because if Saturn may be conjoining with Jupiter and thus being 2 as we get closer to being whole of 1.
It's interesting to make it ritualistic. I think they could do that, but I think the reasons why they got destroyed, these ones, were because of war, survival war we don't hear about. Probably for resources or other stuff, but they left free, and that's weird. Maybe because they didn't get to them.
Victor, did you see this on my screen, which I'm sharing right now? I got a KMC with megaliths of the pyramids art.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of pyramids. By the whole delta is full of pyramids, right?
Look at it. It starts here and it ends somewhere here.
Yeah, and I'll bet that they haven't found half of the rest of the structures by the Nile. And you can even see how big the Nile used to be, guys. Look, where it was green, that is the river bed. And
this was a lake.
Yeah. So I think this the Nile now compared with antiquity is just, I think it's even maybe 1% of its original size, maybe even less than that. But yeah, I'll go on then to the Pyramid Park, and this. Oh my god! Please work. They are unforgiving, these computers sometimes. What to do? It's with the screenshots. They don't like the screenshots somehow. I've taken this as... Oh, here it is. This is the Pyramid Park. This is Cairo, Babylon. I think this is post-mudflood. Looks very leveled out compared with other pictures. And Sphinx. And the pyramid seems still to have their base. And I found that very interesting because they look to have this foundation level that makes them very similar to the Gothic pyramids I see on other maps. And that's, again, just saying that these pyramids were built by the same pyramid builders in the north, or the same, well, at least people that were in contact with each other and culturally aligned. Here, more Pyramid Park. Here's a later depiction from Napoleonic Wars. You can count 4 large pyramids here. This is a period of 4 pyramids. This pyramid got removed, or this one. I think there might be one here as well, but there was a black pyramid amongst these, and that was the 4th pyramid that remained for a while. I think in the 1730s to maybe 1770 or something, there was a black 4th pyramid, and it got destroyed or vanished somehow. Yeah, and you see that weird. They had these entrances as well that are not there anymore. And here they are, probably as they were found. And what in a state of disarray they were in, and completely mud flooded. And look how they went down through these vents originally. You just find it, must have been exciting. And yeah, here's a great piece of confirmation. Barbara Pyramidium, so barbarian pyramids. Not distinctly Egyptian, but barbarian. So the same level of civilization. Here you have Heliopolis in the background. Also with pyramids, even pyramids mounted on top of buildings, it would seem. Not only spires. But yeah, Baba Pyramid, and it's a book about Babylon. So the picture is farming. I'm tired of this. This is an ancient, or well, not that ancient. It's a painting I have in my family, and it shows pyramids in Egypt. How annoying is this? Oh yeah, okay. So here you see. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, now I just have to go back.
Yes.
This is an ancient painting I have in my family, and it shows more pyramids. And but it's not really a one-to-one map. It's more like a medical map, but at least it shows the Sphinx, and it also shows train tracks. Very weird. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've never noticed it before, and also like this subterranean thing, and yeah, castles and ancient statues, and a star fort here. Yeah, more Pyramid Park. 6 or 7 here. More Pyramid Park. Great Sphinx. This is just a bit more Sphinx here as well. Giant Sphinx that got removed. Here you have the pyramid park down here. So I think this complex of pyramids, you have seen in other depictions, they stood on great hills. Now they are buried, and they are level with the city. And I think the city it must be the old city must be down here, because on other maps we've seen that these are on top of what looks like tree stumps, and the city is below them, and now the city is level by them. So yeah, just thinking about it. More Egypt, and here is a state of 4 pyramids, and you can see even an entrance down here. 4 pyramids here, and this is in a state of 4 pyramids as well. And oh yeah, this one is quicker. This one is important. Here it says these obelisks, especially the chevron and the dolmens, are Gothic, but these are the same pyramids as the one in Giza. And here you have, like you have in Denmark, the Jellingestein with the inscriptions on it, the runic inscriptions on it, very close to hieroglyphics and Chinese languages. And they're all connected. Also with the pyramid builders, you also have pyramids in China. And here you have the 2 chevrons. And it's a Viking symbol that means create your own reality. Here the chevron is again. Gothic, Egyptian, Viking. And here you have Tartarian pyramids. The same. And here you have Swedish pyramids. They are the same. Here you have the monoliths, built by the same people. You even have a leopard in very cold Sweden, I guess. Oh, I guess not. And here you have the pyramids on the stumps, so you can see that a great mudflood did happen. And even at this point, the city looks new again, maybe even further down. The ancient Babylon is. But it's just speculation. It might be this is the ancient Babylon and it's bad drawing, but very hard to find out. And this is a bad drawing. It's not really representative of the geography. It's just showing that the pyramids are outside and this is Babylon. But the same thing, you can see the bases of the pyramids. Well, and you can see the tree stumps.
Be an interesting example of how like North America and South America are starting to be uncovered in this way as well.
Yeah, because you have North America, you have the Grand Canyon and the Egyptian civilization there, and you have very close to Las Vegas, you have Egyptian pyramids buried underground. They have kept you from that. It's probably one of the reasons why Las Vegas is such a energy vortex, attention vortex, to keep people away from that. That's probably why Las Vegas is full of Egyptian stuff.
The amount of international investment to place it into a future-based city as well for upcoming circumstances would also coincide with that, as in addition to that too. So it's the investment is also going around the infrastructure of the desert in the area too.
Yeah, they're probably replenishing it as they are doing in Dubai, terraforming or waiting to create like a new Egypt with pyramids and stuff. But yeah, this is in a state of 7 pyramids actually. So yeah, look how small these guys are, and yeah, pyramid park, and it had more than just pyramids. It had these obelisks, Phoenician-looking obelisks, but they are well, the Phoenicians are part of all of this, so they are all pyramid builders at one point, and then the knowledge evaporated. But also we hear from the Sacred Fury book that these mystical shamans, they had an emphasis on symbols. They had a mystical, symbolical language in the hieroglyphs. It had a hieroglyphical language. Because when the catastrophe started, they were afraid that the knowledge would get lost at some point, so they thought of ways to incorporate knowledge into buildings. And so you had two distinct teams who developed two philosophies about how to tackle the new catastrophe always coming. One team wanted to incorporate knowledge to everyone for everyone's benefit, open source. The other team wanted copyright, and it's basically light and dark occultism emerged from this dynamic. Here, more pyramid parks of Giza, and in another state of 6 or 7 pyramids. And here we get to the star forts. There is a star fort somewhere around here. It's hard to see, but there is a star fort in one of these. But you can see, here there is a star fort. So very close to the Giza complex and very close to Cairo or Babylon, there's a star fort. And it's full of palms.
One in the previous image as well. You just missed it with your mouse.
Yeah, it's somewhere around here.
Not right. On the right side of the palm tree, there's a bunch of smaller palm trees, and they grow out of the fort.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm blind. Right there.
There you go.
Yep.
Ninja status on the eyes, Mike, for star fort identification. That takes some extra skills.
So right here, right, it might, and this is very close. It's outside of Cairo, but close. And Cairo is Babylon, as we know. And look at this barbarian architecture here. It's just amazing. It's like in Constantinople, where you just can count spires till you sleep. And this is the Swedish pyramid again. And this is in France. I think this is in France. And look at these pyramids. They look distinctly pyramidal shaped. Even this one could have been like a very large obelisk or something, by Weissup's way of thinking. But these looks to be pyramid. I wondered if anyone has smelled this before, seen this. Purely violon, purely marty. So they might be old pyramids. They certainly look like that on this one. Oh yeah.
Be between like a 2 pillars thing within the pyramids or something.
Oh yeah. It could have. Their proximity to each other would also make me think that they were pyramids. But yeah, they could have been like the pillars of Hercules, like a gate or something. Looks interesting, at least. I'm trying to recollect what my point was with this one. Oh yeah, the Tartars boast their descent from the Israelites, and the famous Tamerlane or Timur took a pride in declaring that he descended from the tribe of Dan. The historical researchers has traced many remarkable analogies between the Mughal and Tartar tribes and those of the Western Hemisphere with respect to the conquest of the Mughal. He observed, what was it? It was something about Moses. Sorry to be a drag.
It's good knowledge, man. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, you're not a drag, man. This is good knowledge. It's very interesting stuff.
Thank you very much. I'm using a lot of brain power right now to think about what my point was. I called Morsoyes. The Tartar chiefs are called Morsoyes, which closely resemble Moses. Yeah, there you go. Morsoyes. Interesting word to research. So yeah, and they resembled Moses, and Moses was Mars. That's why he has horns, because he is from the age of Aries. That's the distinct Old Testament time. And Mars is an angry god. So he says, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. That's how he rules. So he is the ruler of thou shalt not. And that's how the Old Testament is a book of how you should not do this and you should not do that. Or otherwise, X, Y, and Z happens. This is Moses, and this is the horns, and this is the distinct masculine fire god, also called Vulcan, also called Baal, also called Moloch. It's the same god. He requires blood sacrifice. That's why the lamb replaced the golden calf. It was the takeover of Ares from Taurus. This was when Moses stepped in. And this age of fire was the Tartarian Empire's age. It was I have said they were Saturnian, but yeah, that was originally. And they kept their Saturnian wisdom in Tibet. The warlike part of Tartary was becoming Ares, was becoming fire. And that was the dragon and the griffin, I think. That is where it comes from. And that's why they had war industry like no others. Yeah. This is a bay of Bavaria. Awesome architecture, looks like Russia. And he looks like a Russian dude. And just a quick one here. You can see this is on Gallica. And this is Cairo in 1780 something. Sorry, I didn't see. We can see it again. And he's giving the 2 keys, just as in the Vatican, to Napoleon. So Babylon is handing over the keys to these Freemasonic propagandists who probably didn't even exist. And it's an interesting picture because it shows a white dude in charge of Moors, but not only in charge of Moors. The Moors are behind him holding his carpet, and it's a mixed population in Cairo, Babylon. It has cannon holes or blowholes. Oh, shit. Sorry. What happened?
Maybe it's more just one who does not get much sun.
Yeah, it could be.
Instead of white dude, because I guess in that circumstance the narrative does change.
But so they are very distinct, right?
Yeah, but it also being like one of the things of like there was probably the context of if you worked out in the sun, you were of the working class, and so the idea that only
oh yeah, I see, that's right,
imitating the moon kind of elements or shifting towards that dynamic or of some sort.
These 3 moons, and also when they're interlocked, are Turkey, ancient Turkey. You see that, we'll find that on the flags of ancient Turkey. But yeah, this Barbar, you see a pyramid here, is very interesting builders. They were very good at that. But yeah, moving on back to the pictures. Where were we? We've passed this and this and this and this. Oh yeah, we're here. So I've kind of get the feeling, you see, the Tatars were horse people. You have a horseman here, and he kind of looks like a pharaoh. Very close. I could see how they took a guy like this and created the pharaoh picture by the pyramids to cover up these guys. You even see here a lighthouse, a very modern looking lighthouse. And I have said, and I would like to have this as a mantra of people, the Starfort builders are the lighthouse builders and the pyramid builders. And
I want to prevent myself from quacking.
But yeah, I think it's very important to realize some of these things and look at the technology here. It's the same barbar pyramid obelisk building, atmospheric electricity gathering type buildings. This even looks like an Ark of the Covenant type of thing. What is this? These coils. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is interesting. I might have to read the whole of this. Hereto may be added that Asia hath no territory anywhere which may more easily with numerous colonies supply America than this part of Tartary. I'll read that again. Hereto may be added that Asia hath no territory anywhere which may more easily with numerous colonies supply America than this part of Tartary. As well for the vastness of the country to which no other can compare, as for the increasing of the inhabitants, who doth not admire that according to Michelin Letourneur, something like that, there is scarce a city in Tartary that boasted less than 1,000 temples. And to see Conquista, first king of Tartary, is this Genghis Khan? Conquista? About the year 1200, in arms, and his successor Hokata, following his father's bloody footsteps, bloody Mars, whilst he prepared his sons with three vast armies. The eldest son.
It's remarkably similar to Conquistador.
Yeah, this is the. These are the Crusades. I think they flip things like on the basic level. It seems like that these hordes that came in, they were much more comprehensive, and they occurred more frequently than we have been told. That a horde comes in and devastates Europe, probably for good reason sometime. Maybe not for good reason, I don't know. Cannot decide whether I like these warring Tartars. Hokata himself marched victoriously into the North America. So, yep, this is the second king of Tartary, and he marched victoriously into North America. Subdued a great part of the Persian kingdom, so and beat the Turks, led by the general Goniata with a great army. 1241. 1241. Walked into America, Northern America. As Jacob Planensis and Benedictus Sarmata, two monks sent by Pope Innocent to Hokata. So the Pope sends two monks to the Tartary king. Witness, the great number of the Tartars or Scythians may appear by several people spread far and near over Tartary. Pliny reckons some of them, and here are all of their names. Auchetes, Neri, Giuloni, blah, 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 and Hyperborean, interesting.
Well, the Tartarian Scythian collaboration of this process would almost make sense with the laws of order and chaos, or light and darkness.
Yep.
Just this harmonization between the elements.
I see them as Templars and evil occultists, or as Siths and Jedis, and they just flip back and forth, and it's very hard to find out who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, but probably like a bit of both.
But wouldn't we be entering in the time of the Grey Jedi?
Yeah, but it could also be that these are the good guys, the Scythians, and they made the Sith, like, you know, in Star Wars, those who seek great empires are the evil ones, right? So I think they are trying to say that empire is always a bad idea, but the idea of the good empire that Tartary is hidden somehow, I think, still in all of this.
Well, it being removed from the narrative itself, showing a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-spiritual denominated society would not lend to the current narrative at hand. And so since there's a need for that compartmentalization to control, it seems like as we unveil Tartary, it's almost like this reopening of our realization of that connection.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that connection may be more literal than we think. It may have been by lighthouses and towers and telegraphs and stuff like that. It may be, as we see in Star Wars.
It seems.
It may be holographic. They had holographics and could communicate, as we see in Star Wars. But look at this, that they have like this pseudonym called Nomades. That indicated to me that the word nomad came from a distinct people called Nomades that meant something else somehow back then. So the word nomad may never have meant, nomad. And the reason why they were called nomads may be not because they migrated, but because they were affiliated with these people.
What if the nomads were the people that now live in current-day Mongolia?
Yep. What if they're called nomads for another reason than that they are moving around?
Oh yeah, if you look at Mongolia nowadays and presuming it hasn't changed all that much, that's just a presumption, right? If it didn't change all that much, you really need to move around.
Oh yeah.
It's very barren and very empty.
And also, some of you guys may have seen in the Discord today, one of our members posted like this picture of a Tartarian horseman, kind of like a horse hybrid man. And they are called anthropophagi, these horsemen. Like a half a horse, half a man. It's like Sagittarius. It's that illuminated mind of fire, mutable fire. But yeah, I find it funny that that would be like a name for a people. And also beyond the north. So we know that they come from the center of the earth. And that's why they can never be savages, barbarian. Well, not in the sense they would have us think. They can only be people fixated on harmony.
Well, maybe it was the circumstance of it was a natural process of people moving through the lands, and that was the harmony of nature. And then there were some that were stable within the lands, and that they took that away from us and said that doesn't exist or that never happens. And they took the possession of these locations into the individualistic and more the decompartmentalization again of society.
Yeah,
time.
Splitting everything, dividing everything. Yeah.
But as the illuminated knowledge is shared and the wisdom is processed from what comes here, will allow others to grow and realize their connections together.
Yeah, and hopefully some of the first and best things that will come out of it is that Muslims and Christians will realize the historical element of their scriptures, going back to Scythians and Tartarians and possibly a bit further back. And they may also realize how this can bring them together and perhaps quench some of the hate.
Well, also the one of the virtues of hospitality being a natural thing would harmonize with the process of nomadic individuals moving through a community and still being able to integrate and interact with the process at hand.
Yeah, and as increasingly more numbers, more people gain those opportunities, that process will unfold, I think, or at least start to. So you guys remember that I talked about this one guy said that the Greeks took their mystic knowledge from the Tartarians. Well, Bailey, he says that both the Romans and the Greek took everything from an ancient scientific nation in Tartary, the center of Tartary. But yeah, I can read. The thread which connects us with the Greeks and the Romans would have been snapped asunder, though precious productions of ancient literature would no more exist for us than the works, if there were any, published before the catastrophe which annihilated that highly scientific nation, which, according to Bailey, existed in remote ages in the center of Tartary. So at this point in time, he's writing Tartary exists, but within the Tartar regions, there existed a scientific nation older than Tartary itself. So Tartary is banking on that old nation. We're still not, we haven't arrived still at our true ancestors with Tartary, but it is very close to them. It is like
as we rapidly approach it.
Yes. So we may have to, when we discover perhaps what they were called, the ancient empire. Maybe Philip has nailed it already with the Empire of Ross, but it may be those guys we will have to research in the future. But yeah. And yeah, he further on states that in the sciences we would have had all to create, and at the moment when the human mind should have emerged from its stupor and shaken off its slumbers, we would have been no more advanced than the Greeks were after the taking of Troy. So he's saying that they would have had nothing were it not for this Tartary state, scientific nation in the Orient. So this is again confirming what we were talking about earlier. And yeah, this is showing, just a quick one, the facts are there are literature, arts, and sciences that have left their evidences in North America that are more ancient and more worthy of careful study than any of the afforded by either ancient Greece or Rome. The time will come when a classical education will include this study. This is us, guys. This is what we're doing. And it starts here. And it goes to America. The pyramids of Yucatan are some of them much larger than any of them found in Egypt. That of Cheops not accepted. Yes. So we know that the Mayans and the Aztecs and the Egyptians shared calendars. So again, one world. And here in America, we find the tablets of Memphis. You may not have seen these yet. This is very interesting. This is the same calendar. And these are beyond amazing because it connects everything we've talked about, hieroglyphics, the symbols of Western culture, the eye, to moons. We have beautiful arches. This is all found in America. And this would be the Egyptian culture living in the Grand Canyon, I would say. And they are like a mix between Egyptians and Native Americans. They're carrying feathers on their heads, so they're Saturnians. They are Aquarius. And look at this, look very similar to the Tartar script, but also, of course, runic and Chinese. And the eye again. This is the Saturn. If you look at the Freemasonic tracing board, you have the lunar pillar and the solar pillar, and you have the middle pillar of the eye. That is Saturn. And they carry feather. Look at that. That is Egyptian. And here you even find the Jesuit symbol of RHS needed. This is like a nail. I think this is very close to the IHS. And this looks to be like a human sacrifice, as we would have been told that all of these cultures were in fact doing. And this is not to be, we see both Vikings do it, and we see all the barbarians do the human sacrifice out in the open, and the Phoenicians condemn them for that and call them uncivilized. But probably the Phoenicians did the exact same thing, just behind closed doors.
It's
that magic.
Yin and yang aspect. It's representing it in a more nature or natural element, and so sometimes of good, sometimes of evil, but
yeah,
not trying to limit it within the perception of the Christian sense or
the shamans. They
Western
knew
Christian sense of that. But Yes.
Yeah, as you say, the shamans, they knew what time it was. They knew Mars was in control. Probably around this time, Mars required blood sacrifice. If you did not please Mars, he would come after you. It's just like that.
It's like the alchemy of the time to tap into that API process, which we have moved on from.
Exactly. That's why we're not doing it anymore, as these guys do it. But look at this. This is a ancient university or high school or classroom. Hieroglyphics.
That's beautiful, man. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy in a good way.
Crazy in a good way, yes. Yeah, I smile every time I look at this because it just transport the message out there very neatly that there is indeed nothing new under the sun. Oh, stop it. Okay, just a second. There are more. Let me see.
The knowledge is ever expanding. That's the beautiful part about it.
Yeah. Look at these skyscrapers. Could this look like old Manhattan? Could this look like old Chicago? I would say so. Just, in a very simplified way. Huge arches, buildings, looks like perhaps Soho, like a building that could be standing in Soho, and like this looks like a very modern skyscraper. And a huge
could even be San Francisco to that extent.
Yeah.
Or Chicago, yeah, for sure. It is.
But guys, the crazy part about this is that these are supposedly very ancient. These could be like from around the time of Christ. Look at this huge Noah's Ark like thing and huge building here. And is this a Vimana?
Ferries like at San Francisco.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I love these tablets. They're called the Michigan tablets.
Oh wait, go back. It looks like the Exploratorium in that with the ferry. If you go back into it.
This one?
Yeah, to the right, just above it. It looks like the Explorer could be. No, a little bit. Yeah, it actually does look like it. Well, I'm sure some pictures can be produced of it, but yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and plus with having that like fairy like thing on it, it does look like San Francisco.
Wow,
is that like an earthquake in the background or like people shaking?
Yeah, good you mentioned it. This is like
looks like they're drowning.
It looks like a mud flood from the sky, but it could also just be drowning, of course, in water. But...
Is that Notre Dame?
Well,
do you know what that reminds me of? The bit below the people drowning? That reminds you of the Ark of Noah.
Yeah, Ark of Noah.
Save us. Help us.
And this, look at this, it has like these small things. It reminds me of not a Vimana, but something you would have in the swamp, and then I don't know why I think this is a device or a transportation device. It just looks like that to me.
Like a dirigible?
Yeah, dirigible, yeah, perhaps. That would be cool because this is very ancient. These are artifacts, and they have something close to Anubis, I would say, but looks like a lizard. And we know, of course, that in America, the god of Quetzalcoatl, the lizard god, is big. So it could be this guy. And here you have calendars and seasons, and very interesting, to say the least. And you have the snake around the tree. And this is the Old Testament symbolism. Same people. Sun worship, but under Martian rule. And you have like a dragon here, we see, or a dog. I'm not quite sure. Servant on a pole, yeah. trying to get back into it. Just wait a minute. Where did we leave it? There. Servant on a pole. A document? A tablet? Could this be like the tablet of Moses? Oh, I love this one. This looks like the RHS again. And look at the windows. They look extremely modern. You have the eye and the pyramid in the center, Saturnian. And yeah, it just looks incredibly modern. Bricks down here as well. And yeah. And here's the priest standing as an illuminated mind. Man with staff. And these are trading with Indians. So wherever these guys are, trading with Indians. They reckon, at least. So there's exchange of, these would be the Indians, right? Feathered to more shamanic, more nature. These are these, yeah, this would be like the, this would be like the West and, no, I'm not gonna go there. These are just like more civilized, to say, for lack of a better word, more left-brained, I would say, and these are right-brained, very close to each other. Perhaps they grew up next to each other and just chose two different principles of life. I don't know, but yeah, they're trading with each other. Yeah. I'm not quite sure, but I like to see that trade is going on, and these guys are building huge cities, and they look very ancient. And these guys could possibly be what we have today, out in the woods. And I think that is fascinating, because now we have this ancient people, this ancient builder people. Look how he has a goat beard. And yeah, more of the ancient buildings. I think it's very safe to assume now, guys, that the ancient cities of San Francisco and Chilaga and stuff like that are built by these people. Look at this.
Like a Zoroastrian, like kind of Assyrian beard kind of in there, in that image too.
Oh, yeah. I get what you're going with that. They have that very, strict, aggressive, masculine goat beard. But this chap looks very happy for some reason.
Well, a harmonized society would probably make you pretty happy.
Yeah, I bet. But then something happens and shit goes wrong. This is the reset. Astronomy and science in the heavens. This is not only science in the heavens. It's beyond me that these guys wouldn't say catastrophe based on this. No, these are signs in the heavens, guys. Well, I guess they.
And Noah just kept warning him. Come on, guys, get on my boat. No, we don't want to be on your boat. Well, I warned you.
Well, these are signs in the heavens, of course, but yeah, I think this is more important. This part. How annoying that it just keeps on bugging. Let's see what.
Well, it would be that time. We have to deal with a few challenges. Fortunately, it's only in that way.
Yeah, and guys, look at this. Michigan tablets is the language of the unknown people, and they are exactly the same as Egyptian. There's no. It's a done deal, guys. Look at the Phoenicians of Byblos, XXX. Oh, guys, we have 1x. We want free. But yeah, all these people are one.
As
one
indeed a
world.
white civilization. It's very nice stuff here, Victor. Solidifies a lot of, it's very nice stuff there. It solidifies a lot of things, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's I've been working a long time on this, pulling a lot of things that just takes all the extremes and pull them into one place, and yeah, pretty glad about it.
Very beautiful too. Yeah, amazing.
Thank you very much.
Really good stuff.
This is the old Colina pyramid in Dalmatia, Croatia today by Sibin Nietzsche. And I've posted on the Discord in local legends, I think. There's a woman who found the site of this, the ruins and the hill of this pyramid. It cannot be seen anymore, but I think she found a hill where this pyramid once was. So it's very interesting. I think it's again the same builders.
It's marked down on the megalith file. I'll look it up in a second and share the screen.
Oh, you have marked it down?
Yeah. 1 second, I'll look it up and then I'll share the screen.
Okay, 1 second, you say.
You can look at Starforge if you like. I don't mind. I'm just relabeling, and you mentioned that here in Croatia. I'm like, I got that marked down.
Oh well, I'll just wait then. I'll just show a few things that the wall of Tartary. And this is not the wall dividing China and Tartary, but this is a wall by the Caucasus Mountains, and you can see how this is the Tartar style of building walls. And it even has like this old tower here. It's very large. So yeah, and on the next picture, you get to see what the officials would like to call the Chinese wall. But on this map, which Richard Lopez has shown before, it says it doesn't really mention China close to the wall. It looks as if it's stating that, look, it's talking about a Mongol tunnel here. So I think it's pretty safe to say that this was a Tartar built construction. Perhaps
I haven't found any signs of that wall, but there's lots of great walls throughout Russia.
Yeah, it's the same style of building as well.
Yeah.
And,
well, it makes sense that maybe the Mongols had the skills of tunnel digging, so they probably had the counter defense systems for the Tartarian.
Yeah, I like that. That could be it on a later date.
The collaboration between their skill sets.
But see, like you even had rivers crossing the wall. So, and here it looks like you have gates from both sides. So I'm a bit confused about that. It may be that these gates were walled up on a later date. It may not be as we think, guys, this wall. Because look at this, how it was divided in sections here. It's weird. And it divides further
Maybe
here.
That's the breach point, and they started fighting in that area or something, and so there was walls established between each other.
This is gone, I think now. It must be. I've never heard about the wall branching out. And this must also be gone. But I could be wrong. Here you see in Babylon, you have the same type of wall. This is the Temple of Semiramis. Look at, it's just so huge building. Like, even the stairs compared with these people. Oh my God. Just the base to walk up the stairs. Look at it. Ridiculous. It's, yeah, an amazing building.
Yeah, but we lost that technology.
It's a painful process to build it back. Yeah, I bet you.
Painful process to build it back up. Yeah.
They even had.
Maybe once we learn, it'll just be that Alchem's razor was really just all that simple.
Oh yeah, it's very good to have hindsight, huh? This is the. Yeah, we know this. The lighthouse of Alexandria. But I also find that this spiral thing has to do with communication, I think. And I think the lighthouses are part illumination towers and communication towers. Also partly because I think you can communicate with light. So, yeah. And this is a Tartar fort, just for reference. The Tartars did build star forts. I've heard people say, there are no star forts in Tartaria, so they couldn't build star forts. Well, here you go. And it's just a weird claim. You haven't looked at anything if you say that. This is the European part of Tartary, also called Lesser Tartary. There were the Kubani Tartars and the Nahuenses, I think they were called, and the Circassi. And they lived very close to the Black Sea, and they extended further into Etruscan territories and possibly even into Italy at one point, I think. Yeah, I think they built Rome.
That red line you just showed in the previous image. That looks a lot like the Great Wall of the Ukraine, the Velikaya Savolstaya.
Oh, yeah, yeah. This would be at the edge of modern-day Ukraine as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You got Crimea there on the bottom left. Crimea, Tartaria.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. The Crimea. That's the Crimea.
Yep. And this is Azov.
Yeah, Azov. I got that marked down as a star.
Yeah. But yeah, here it just states that it is a Tartar stat. So just for reference. And this is Tripoli in Bulgaria, and here you have again Russian, Moorish, Byzantium type architecture next to pyramids and star forts. These are, and this is in Barbaria. Oh, the savage barbarians! How savage they were. It's just so weird. Cannot be said anymore when you have been building stuff like this. And their priest was the old pope. He was called the Ortolomo. This is a Swedish text. And it says that the principal priest is called Ortolomo, the great Lama, it means. And it further says that it is the priest of all priests. So this is the world ruler. And he sits in Tartary. And he's called Ortolomo. And I'm going to end on this one, which I will be looking into for the next week. Schlaraffenland, or the land of cocaine. It may be, this is a land of legend, but there are maps, and I will show them next time. And on these maps, it says to the south of Schlaraffenland lies Tartary, to the north lies the Holy Land. This would be the Holy Land, this would be Tartary. This can only be solved by a land bridge to the Holy Lands, which we have here. So it's just, where is it? But you'll see that in the next time, or the next episode, I guess.
I got a Bosnian pyramid for you.
I'm done.
That was very good, man.
Bosnian.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's really good stuff, Victor. I just wanted to get that that Bosnian pyramid out there because you mentioned it.
Oh, well, it's not that one, actually. I will send you a link. It's not the Colina, that one.
Ah. Well, in that case, it's not marked down in that megalith file I received.
It's not. So
the beautiful
that's why
part of learning in the moment as we progressively grow from this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This was. I feel good now. I'm glad I got this all out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice. Anybody else
is
want to,
Master Willie in this chat, since he can write to us?
He had to go. He had to go do something. Yeah,
Oh,
go outside.
I've been a huge monologue this time.
No, you need to get out, man.
Yeah, I needed to get out.
It was a good monologue, though. And we can definitely.
Thank you for chiming in, Ethan and Mike and Lee and Lynn.
For sure. Is anybody else got something on this topic, or should we just?
Oh, if Lee wants to talk about the Lebris, I'm up for that.
Oh, for sure.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Well,
you got images, Lee.
I can post. I can post links, maybe. Actually, I do have some images. I guess I could share my screen. Give me a moment.
Yeah, I know you have that interesting trident one.
Mm-hmm. When I saw that, I was like,
"Oh yeah, that's right."
Yeah,
and
I mean, I'm used to seeing. I know that Shiva had a drummy trident, but I'd never really considered them to be put together. And then I saw that, and I was like, oh, so they can be separate or they can be together. And then when I saw that image, I was like, wow.
yeah, it's crazy to find such like things that you would scoff at for like 10 years ago, and like this is just a museum art piece, and now it's like an ancient technological piece. Yeah, it's crazy.
How do I oh, is that it? Share.
Yeah, you click on that green arrow, and then select share full screen.
Victor, are you looking at my screen at the moment?
Okay, yep, got it.
Oh yeah, I gotta stop screen sharing, right?
No, you don't have to. I mean,
oh yeah, I'm looking at your. You can see the Chinese pyramids.
Look, this is Chinese pyramid number 80.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
That's just this strip of land, right? That's all they represent, and that's actually right outside that old green piece that China used to be.
Oh, interesting
Right.
how they are located on the edge of what looks like a huge mud flow. Also,
oh, this is the edge of old China. If you look at these old maps.
Oh yeah, this is right on the edge. Yeah.
This etching with my mouse pointer, that was China.
Oh yeah. You could. I think it's so obvious that the ancient coastline was like, if you zoom back out and go to the larger basin, you can see there was an ancient coastline out here. I would say, where it becomes at that drop, that looks like to be the ancient coastline. Yeah. But let's go back to Lee.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure Victor will have a lot more to say on it, but for me, I just happened to.
You've compiled a lot of images here.
I mean, I've been talking about Shiva with Ethan a couple of times recently, and then it kind of came up again because we were I think we were talking about Tartary for Dr. Lenny's radio show, and then while we were talking after the show, the conversation got very interesting, and then you know, I start researching things while people are talking about them, and then I just or when things pop into my head, I start looking up stuff.
Yeah.
And so my idea now is to connect the concept of the Fashis with Shiva's trident and the Damaru, and by extension the Vajra, which and then you've got all these different connections.
Wow. And it's also connecting like
it almost
different cultures in the same as
If you also turn it on its side, it also just looks like the magnetism, or kind of like how it radiates off as well.
Right.
It had other image there.
Well, Lenny said it reminded him of primer fields.
Yes, they are the primer fields. Yeah,
and he's saying it's like a frequency tuner or something. So it's really, really fascinating. You suddenly look, and I'm comparing. You look at this image here with this from the Thunderbolts project, I believe, or a series of petroglyphs about it. And I think they're basically trying to give us let us know about this electromagnetic.
I think this image you see here was visible in the sky on a huge scale, and they were depicting this as a petroglyph, a survivor culture. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's really, really interesting. I'm connecting the fasces with the Labris, where obviously they are connected, but then you look at Shiva's trident and you realize that's the style of that you would find, because they have giant statues of Shiva on top of a lot of their temples. So they've got their other way with channeling ether or whatever is through the trident thing, and so it just made sense to me. And then you connect it with the Thunderbolts project, with the Vajra, and then we see like this Vajra here. It's connected with the Thunderbolts of the gods, Zeus, and then you look at this this bell type thing, and it's almost like saying, this might be about noise, frequency, vibration, and
also with the drums, and I have pictures of, catalogs of weaponry for war, and the drum is right in there with the rest of them.
Right.
Just casually being there. Yeah.
Well, being a circumstance of like that harmony between two things, or that duality, the sound of healing as well as the sound of destruction, or as well as the sound of death or the sound of life, kind of in that process, can disseminate from the circumstance.
Right. It definitely fits in with that multi-purpose aspect that I'm thinking the fasces has in relation to everything else. The other aspect was that the concept of the cargo cult. I'm starting. The more I think about it, the more I'm just thinking everything's a goddamn cargo cult. If we were reset at some point, and then a lot of knowledge was lost, the Labris looks like an axe, so it wouldn't then be much of a leap to then think, oh, maybe they had battle axes, but it wouldn't make much sense to have a battle axe because it would be a really dangerous weapon. You wouldn't want to be. You'd need a lot of space around you. I think ultimately an axe seems more about is more of a tool than a weapon. Which then, if you consider it from that perspective, and you look at the fasces, then it's a tool. It's a component of a tool or a way of extracting energy. So I was kind of thinking, and then you look at the way the trident is and what the Damaro is in relation to that. It's an easy leap there as well. You don't have to go too far. In fact, to be honest, it looks just almost like bells on the end of it. Bells. Oh yeah. Trickling down from bells, and then from a profile shot, the bell looks like an axe, and then you've got this bell here. So
yeah, it's
bells may have
the Furba and the Tuki, or that's the Furba down there. But yeah, that's a Tibetan tool used in ceremony to harmonize between prayers.
Right.
At certain frequencies.
Yeah, so it's frequency based. It cannot be any other way. And why would you have a frequency based emitter or transmitter on the end of like a bundle of rods?
Right. There must be something conductive. Either conductive and all of it. And that's why I'm kind of thinking if ether is all around us, it's not just energy, it's information, it's a communication tool. It's so many different things. Energy is transferable. It can go from one thing to another. We need the copper wire and in telephone lines and stuff to transmit the signal in the first place. So then obviously that would follow that. Obviously we all know this, so it's kind of gets to that point where energy and frequency, vibration is all the same thing. It's just a matter of maybe using the right technology to harness it for the right purpose.
So,
the catalyst.
Right. So yeah, that's about it really. It's just a bit of a continuation from the last time that we were talking about. The answers have been falling thick and fast, haven't they? So.
Oh yeah. I have a few of the Laprise as well. I can pull them up.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Just going to share my screen then, so we can get it in with all your stuff.
Ooh.
That'd be awesome. Oh wait, so like that. Okay, so just 3 pictures. So this reminded me of it, but it's not quite the same. But here you have it.
The shapes. It's got to be about the shapes.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's like when you get different containers.
So what if that just used to be the trident instead of the fasces on top?
Oh yeah, it even you could cut, if you like cut. It have that trident form.
Right.
And it has it is a fasces here. It is a fasces used on the top of a monument as the collector, I would say. Right. And it has like a ring of perhaps steel or iron connecting these spears or lances perhaps. And they have this cloth collecting static electricity perhaps also. Now we're beginning to perhaps better understand how some of these things work. Collecting all the electrons, ringing a bell somehow, causing the electrons to be excited into a higher energy state, make them emanate outside by sound, make others collect them. Yeah. That's how I think about it. Oh, just the last one, which seems to be... Oh, I'm getting annoyed by this. Okay, I'll just do this then. See the debris up here. So this is a one-sided one, and it looks to be very two-dimensional. But
well, maybe different pages, different tools on top, in order for like turning to like the trident or like the spear at the point more, or something of that nature.
It's definitely There's definitely something about it, isn't there? But the other thing I'm trying to work out is, I don't know why this just kind of comes to me, but in America you get NTSC, right? And that's like and it's all about the hertz, the refresh rate. And I'm guessing that must be an environmental thing. That's the only thing I can think of. Because why would it be that you get different regions with different that requires different refresh rates if it wasn't just the environment is so connected with the concept of energy. So to me, it's like, oh, page 33.
Oh yeah.
So to me, I do think that maybe the refresh rate, the hertz range, might have something to do with it. Obviously, but I think that's maybe it's about the shape. Maybe the shapes aren't necessarily, I don't know, are they emblematic or they may be symbolic, but maybe they're also about necessity. About
yes,
in this region, we require a shape to generate this kind of energy because that's the nature of this specific locale, and vice, and then the same thing in other places. And then
in the same way for the ritual that was necessary for the time, like at one point sacrifices being necessary but no longer, and
right,
so just transitioning to the next symbols and tools to harness those options.
Right.
And then you look at these spires on the top of these. This is a building that is basically next door to me, and I was kind of wondering why is there a bit of an interesting atmosphere around this area, this particular park area, and then I'm kind of thinking maybe it's something to do with this.
Wow.
And then you're seeing this building, and it's like a miniature version of what you were just showing me with that building there.
Wow, yeah.
You realize that this is on top of a lot of old buildings. And this is bit of a rundown thing. I can walk around it, took a few pictures, but I just noticed it, and I thought it's been here. I've been here for 3 years, and it just never dawned on me.
That is the Tartar style with the red brick and the white stripes,
right?
And the in the last live we did, I confirmed that was the particular Russian style, according to an exposition. Makes great sense, bro.
How's it going, everyone? Sorry for interrupting. This looks very important.
Hey, Andreas.
And Carly, you've made it. What's up?
What's up? Good to see.
So, we're crossing now. We've been like walking and biking all over the city. She was just saying, she's like, this is, what did you say? It was amazing. They're like, this is like a dystopian utopia dream. Like, it's like everyone's lives are like, they've got bike locks, they've got parks. Like, you have to single file fit into every little place, follow the rules. It's very interesting how monarchy does things, right? I don't know. Europe is different.
Oh yeah, monarchy. True.
They interact with your life a lot here. It's noticed. One also we've noticed is there's the symbol here. I want to get a real quick thing on this. Check this out. I gotta be careful not to upset anybody, but you notice the bat? Can you see that?
Yeah?
Yeah. The symbol of Valencia, the Gothic city of Valencia, is a symbol of a bat on top of a crown, on top of a shield.
Wow. That's
everywhere
interesting.
we look, we're finding copper, street lamps with dragons. Today we went to this market, and the market was like very biblical because it used to be a church. There's like 2 collapsed churches that are like dug into the ground, a basement from the catacombs, and converted into, you know, a market and a den of thieves and salesmen. Also important, the water fountains. You ever?
Oh yeah, there are like so many of those.
You ever make out with Poseidon? I have.
Oh yeah. Might want to go wash your mouth now.
Well, immediately I feel like I'm not going to be offering very much help but loud noise as I walk around because I don't have my headphones to listen to this. So I'm going to cut back in later, I think. Is there anything that we could share while we're walking here? Because I got a lot of footage to bring you guys later.
Yeah.
Well, that's up to you. Like, do you have anything you want to share?
I mean, I can't show you the footage I got today, but I've got a lot of footage with the GoPro. And I guess what I wanted to mention was all the Moorish architecture, Plaza to the Virgin, Plaza to the Angels, all the clocks. They've got a lot of the architecture here is about 200 years old. And I've been talking to some guys who work here. Everything's under construction. And some of them are very proud of brick masonry and stone cutting in Spain. I went to this park, which was converted from an old giant Tartarian, castle. It's bigger than anything I've ever seen in terms of a building that's been collapsed. And you can tell that it was built over because there's all these holes there. And I asked the old guy, like, what are these holes for? He's like, oh, they're for the candles because they didn't have electricity. But it's like, I've seen pictures of when this was supposed to be built, and yeah, they did. But now you look at these holes, and then right above it, there's like fossilized wood. There's wood in some of these places. So there's some sort of, fossilized wood. Like, oh yeah, well that's because they poured concrete. It's like, okay, I need to look into it a lot more. But one thing you'll notice is for a city right next to the beach, there's tons of underground. One of the most successful installments of underground 2 miles from the coast I've ever seen in my life. A lot of them.
Yeah, they may very well be just remnants, updated old tunnels.
Well, it seems like the yellow bricks here are the best example. The redder brick can be a little bit newer. They're like Franco period. Yellow brick buildings, without a doubt, every yellow brick building I've seen about 100 now, been walking around, all have about 20 feet underground, at least. And then they've got other things around. There's a whole bunch of underground here. Like, it's crazy. And then there's lots of these buildings are just built right into each other. They connect them. They build them right over each other. They don't want you to be able to tell what they've done to the place, but
definitely not.
Everything changed in the 50s. Clearly, there was a point, and they said, "Oh, I gave you water."
Yeah, right
all
after
these fountains, they act like they're pharaoh.
Right after the Second World War, yes, everything shifted in terms of postmodernism and just building and having the infrastructure to build again. And
yes, I mean everywhere I've looked, the society is being broken up here into like they make sure that you have just enough food and that you have to keep going to the next place, but all the systems there to help you work. So all these people are going to school, they're getting on buses, they're taking their bikes, you can go anywhere, you can do anything so long as it's for a purpose.
Temporary security, like that temporary, like you're secure for a month, kind of, as well as compartmentalized, it seems like. Yes,
it's also true. There's like zones where there are expats here. You will not hear very much any English. I went into a store and it spoke Chinese, and it was way easier. I went to another store and like I was talking to some people, and all they could speak were Polish. A lot of the time on the street, you'll hear British expats here. It's like a very international, globalist city. And there's this part of it, the center of it is called the City of Science, and it was a temple that there was a mud river, and the river was, it flooded with mud, and then they dried it out. There was no room for any more river there, so they had a big mound of dirt, which they then dug out a building, wouldn't you believe it, which is the only building left there. And then they put these new buildings there that are all geodesic domes, and I have some amazing footage driving by, but it's like, it looks like the Bill and Ted University from the future. It's just a white marble rolling, everything is just incredible and new, and it's like a Guggenheim Bilbao art museum architecture, just very futuristic. And then, yeah, right in the center of it is this like embedded into the ground brick 2-story building that's like into the ground, you know. Hello?
You got any video of that giant yet, Gulliver?
Yes. The Gulliver thing is like so insane. You're gonna see some footage from the ground. It's really what you imagine. I mean, from what we saw, like, what is the deal with this giant statue? And
it's not sharing
it is a.
Right now, Andreas.
Sorry?
It's not sharing the footage right now.
Yeah, no, I can't like put it up on my phone, but I will when I'm walking around. But basically, they turned it into like little children amusement park. So the little kids go with their parents and they wander up the Gulliver, and you can zigzag back and forth, and there's ropes that are tying him down, and the kids can climb the ropes. So it's like they're like tightening them by like jumping on their you can like walk on the string, like the walking area, and it's all like the amusement of playing with this giant that they've captured is like the idea. But yeah, basically Valencia has a lot of remnants to Batman and to giants. That's what I'm starting to notice here.
You said Batman and giants?
Yeah, this is the Batman city. Visigothic Valencia with the symbol of the bat everywhere. And they have this elite mentality that like really fits Batman. I need to talk to some more people about that to see like there must be a ton of like Spanish Batman comics that come out.
You gotta find the version of the Wayne family there.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be the real, make it clear. And also, I never noticed how much Batman looked Spanish, right? I mean, he does. He's like Bruce Wayne has a very like in the old comics specifically. And if you look at the new version of Batman, Batman has a spinoff which is Zorro. Zorro is the Mexican Spaniard. So it's interesting that there's a a Visigothic Latin correlation to Batman. I never noticed until I saw the bat on all the symbols.
Yeah, I could see that. That would make perfect sense.
Huh.
And why would it not be that way? I mean, either way, it wouldn't matter. It's for that process. It's just another characteristic of it.
Gotham.
Batman and being Batman.
Just Gotham being Visigothic. And it's like Gotham is supposed to be this hodgepodge of Tartarian architecture that's really tall.
Yeah.
And it's like okay.
No, I was going. We were going to talk about the Goths and the Moors, and it's very much on topic. So I just like how that just worked out.
Yeah, it's weird. I've been thinking about the Bat more and more. I mean, just the other day, I started looking into we had talked at one point about Batman Book of the Dead, the Egyptian connection to Batman. And it's like, oh, Spain, Egypt, Tartessos, whoa, Batman. Like, it's very weird that it all synced up like that.
Beautiful symmetries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very cool. All right, I will talk to you guys later. It's very
fantastic. Let you jump in.
Enjoy your day, bro.
Soon. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Yeah, that was great. Victor and Lee and Lynn and Mike and everybody, as well as Lee, both Lees actually.
Yeah.
Lee and Lee.
And that was great. You guys appreciate it for the sharing of the knowledge. Yeah. And
the best, guys.
Nice episode, guys.
Between two worlds. That was beautiful.
Excellent. All right.
You're the best, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Speak soon.
Take care.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
If you're interested in trying out the Foundry, just visit TartaryNova.com